Thanks everybody for being here on a Saturday to learn more about the Vascular Anomalies Communication or VACOM study. I'm Kristen Davis. I'm the Executive Director at CLOVES Syndrome Community, and I'm joined by Melanie Finger, who is the Director of the KT Support Group, and researchers Dr. Bryan Sisk and Dr. Kerr. You'll hear from Dr. Sisk and Kerr soon, but we wanted to share a little bit about them and also give you a high-level overview of the study and why we're supporting this project. So Dr. Bryan Sisk is an assistant professor in pediatric hematology and in oncology at Washington University School of Medicine, and he's the director of research for the Bioethics Research Center. His clinical area of expertise is lymphatic and vascular anomalies. Dr. Sisk's research focuses on identifying, measuring, and intervening upon communication functions in serious pediatric illness. He's especially interested in the social and ethical issues related to the child-parent-clinician relationship when children have serious illnesses. Dr. Kerr received her Master of Arts in Communication from the University of Cincinnati and PhD in Communication from the University of Kentucky. Currently, she's an assistant professor at the Ohio University Heritage College of Osteopathic Medicine in Athens, Ohio. Dr. Kerr's primary research aims to improve the experiences of caregivers caring for a loved one with rare or unexplained illnesses. And since 2009, her research has focused on the experiences of parents of children with vascular anomalies. As you are all well aware, vascular anomalies are a group of rare disorders that can be disfiguring, painful, and even life-threatening. Patients and families affected by vascular anomalies have described multiple barriers to care and communication, such as difficulty accessing care from experts, persistent uncertainty about the diagnosis and long-term consequences, insufficient information to guide decisions, and the necessity of persistent parental and patient advocacy to ensure that they are receiving adequate medical care. And we know that even if people do that, sometimes they do not receive adequate medical care. However, no researchers thus far have explored or categorized the needs or barriers experienced by these patients and families. So this is a huge unmet need in our communities, and this is why we are so pleased to support the work of Drs. Sisk and Kerr. So a few housekeeping details. I know we've all been on Zoom for the past 2 years, but this information session is being recorded. You probably heard it say the meeting's being recorded, and it will be available to view on our YouTube pages at some point in the next few weeks. We have you all on mute to prevent background noise during the presentation. And after the presentation, there will be a question and answer session, and you can type your questions into the chat box, which I just put a message there. And our team will work through your questions and make sure that we get them answered. And if there's not time to answer them now, we will get them answered after this presentation. So without any further ado, Dr. Sisk and Dr. Kerr, the stage is yours.
Great, let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, can everybody see the presentation?
Looks good.
All right, that's success number 1 for the day. Thank you so much, all of you, for coming out on a Saturday, and really, really great thanks to the CLOVES Syndrome Community and the KT Support Group, and Melanie and Kristen and all of you for supporting this project. We're very early on, but our goal is that this is the beginning of a long, ongoing collaboration between us that's gonna hopefully advance the science, but also just improve the lives for people that are affected by vascular anomalies. So our study is called VACOM, Vascular Anomalies Communication Project. And let's see, there we go. And big picture is we want to understand the communication and the care experiences from the perspectives of patients and caregivers. So the goal is to have 2 different areas of focus. One is on the experience of providing care for a minor child who has a vascular anomaly, and then the experience of being kind of a young and emerging adult experiencing vascular anomalies. And we're going to be asking you to participate in an interview, and we'll talk about what that interview is going to include in a second. Just again, to put some pictures to our faces, please feel free to call me Bryan anytime you're speaking with me, and I believe Anna would say the same thing. You already heard a little bit about us, but we are both very dedicated to this field and to everybody that participates in our studies. So what are we trying to learn? there's a lot of things that we've heard from either interactions with families or in my clinic. Families have a long-standing history and challenge of finding a diagnosis. So we want to understand what that diagnostic odyssey is, what that experience is like, and what it means to finally get a diagnosis, what it means if a diagnosis change. We think these are really important aspects that clinicians don't have a lot of insights into yet. We want to understand what types of care families need, where there's barriers to getting that care. We also want to know how families find doctors, if they find doctors, what they do when they have a flare or when they have an emergency. We want to understand when they access a doctor or a nurse or a clinical team. We want to understand how that communication goes, what makes it really good, what could really make it better, and where's there room for improvement. This is just the really high level picture of what we're trying to understand. To give a brief overview of who can be part of this study, like we talked about, there's two groups. There's one is adult patients. We're aiming for people that are somewhere between 18 years old and 35 years old, so we can still get a sense of that transition to adulthood and managing all of the aspects of the vascular anomaly. And then the other aspect is caregivers of a minor child who has a vascular anomaly. And this could be a parent, could be a guardian, it could be a grandparent, whoever it is that provides, the large majority of care for that particular child. Because of international regulations relating to research, participants must reside in the USA when they participate in this. Otherwise, there becomes these international regulatory conflicts about research. So you don't have to be an American citizen, but you have to be residing in the United States while we do the interview to participate. So what happens during interviews? If you've never been part of an interview like this, it's really just a conversation. It's either a phone call or a video teleconferencing call, and that's up to you, whatever you're most comfortable with and whatever's most convenient for you. We ask a lot of open-ended questions around the types of topics that we discussed earlier. And the most important thing I want everyone who participates in an interview to know is that you are the expert. We're asking for your experiences. So whatever is true to your experience is exactly the right answer, and that's exactly what we're trying to learn from. Some people will be a little worried if they're going into an interview, do I have to have the right answer, or am I going to know what they're asking? You 100% are the expert, and we're trying to learn from you. If you participate, we're offering $40 Amazon gift cards out of appreciation for your time. And then the next question is, what are we going to do with this information? So we will follow a rigorous process called qualitative analysis or thematic analysis. I'm not going to bore you with details of how we'll do that analysis, but we're going to get results that give us overarching themes from the data. And first and foremost, we're going to make sure we share these results with you. So in about a year, we're planning to have another one of these seminars or these webinars where we can engage with you all, tell you what we learned, get additional thoughts, and then tell you about what the next phase of the study might look like. And so we're also going to use this information to develop that next phase of the study, which in about a year is going to be a survey that we're going to send even broader. That's going to help us to, number one, better understand the experiences of all of you, but number two, help us to document it. So one of the reasons why this study, in my opinion, is so important is not only because we need to understand the knowledge and we need to understand how to improve things, but in the future, we need bigger sources of research funding so we can actually develop interventions and actually develop structures that tangibly make life better. To do any of that, we have to have publications that document what the problems are. And this will be a big study for documenting a lot of those problems so we can start to build on that and fix barriers, fix negative experiences. And that's my part. And I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Kerr and let her go through what we anticipate might be some of the frequently asked questions. And then we'll open it up to a bunch of questions you have and tell you how you can actually sign up.
Thank you. So these are some of the FAQs that just didn't fit anywhere else in the slide. How many people are participating? We would love to interview 30 caregivers and 30 adult patients with vascular malformations or vascular anomalies. So if you sign up, we'll contact you, we'll gauge your interest, but that's about the number that we're looking for, that we want to have a conversation with. You do not have to participate with your child or your parent. You can participate on your own. We don't have to have any paired groups. We wanted to let you know that this is being funded by both the CLOVES syndrome community and KT support group. And we're very, very grateful for the support for this project. And we hope that it leads to many more research projects. We're also really grateful that we can give you that $40 gift card as a thank you for your time, because we do understand that we're asking you to participate in a conversation in your busy lives. So how long will the interviews last? They usually take about 45 to 60 minutes. Like Dr. Sisk said, it's a lot of open-ended questions. It'll be things like, tell me about a time when, or tell me about a conversation you had. And so it's a lot of you sharing your experiences with us. And you might be thinking, will this research make a difference? Yes, absolutely. A lot of support groups like this have medical advisory boards that we work with. We present these at scientific conferences where we hope that clinicians are hearing this information and not just seeing the biomedical side of it, but are seeing the experiences of caregivers and patients. And you might also think to yourself, well, I don't feel like I have an important story to share. I don't have anything noteworthy. We want to hear everything. We want to hear the normal, the mundane, the exciting. We want to hear everything that makes your story your story. And so don't let that be a hesitant that you feel like you don't have some. This isn't a newspaper article where we're looking for buzzword clips to put in. We want to hear your entire story. And so participating in this will really be able to make sure that your voice is included in the information that we share with clinicians and other families who might just be starting on this journey together. All right, you can head to the next slide. All right, so if you're interested in signing up, I shared the link in the chat. You can also use the QR code here. If you just hold your phone up to it, you don't have to take a picture, just hold your phone's camera up there. And we will also be sending a follow-up email that includes the link if you just need some time to think about it and want to get some more information. Also, signing up does not obligate you to participate. You can put your information, we will contact you. You can ask any more questions that you have and decide if you want to participate in the interview. So we will leave a few minutes here. If you want to sign up now, go ahead and take a minute. And then also, if you have any questions right now for us, start thinking of those and we'll be able to drop those in the chat.
So there is one question in the chat so far from Josephina. The results, will the results be shared with the community? We are from Argentina, so we can't participate, but we believe that this research will be great.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
we
Bryan.
also think it's going to be great. But absolutely, we're going to make sure that we share results. One thing Anna and I are very, very focused on avoiding is sometimes in research, you have researchers that pop into a community, get data, and then leave, and you never hear from them again. We want to be very clear from the beginning that is not our plan or MO, and our goal is that we're going to be in this with you for years and years, building and making things better.
And we've talked too how it could turn into developing useful materials or resources that would be able to share with the entire community. So absolutely.
And one question I've got offline, it was, do I have to have CLOVES or KT to participate in this study? So
it's a great question too. No, we are focusing on CLOVES and KT because that's obviously their vascular anomalies that can really affect your life. But if you have something else that is considered a vascular lymphatic anomaly, you're also more than welcome to join the study.
So I had another question that was a DM to me, which is, I'm a patient over 30, can I participate?
So we're aiming for 18 to 35. I see one that just said, I just turned 37. I would say contact us. So it's not a firm boundary where we have to limit below 35. It's just at some point, we believe that the experiences of somebody in their 20s or 30s is going to be different than somebody in their 40s, 50s, 60s. But if you're really close, contact us and we can talk through it and make sure that it would be a good fit. But feel free. The worst thing that could happen is if you contact us and we go through it and for some reason you're not eligible, we still got to meet you and talk with you and get to know you. So there's no problem reaching out to us if you have questions about whether or not you can be part of the study.
Our daughter is 12. Would you like to speak to a parent or child also?
I think we should. I'm talking too much, Anna. I'm gonna let you talk next.
So if the patient does need to be over 18 to participate, so every participant has to be over the age of 18. But if you would like to participate as the parent, as the caregiver, you can talk about those experiences that you and your daughter have had together.
I think a future study would be really interesting to talk to kids that are in that adolescent range, that kind of 12 to 17 range. One thing is with studies like these, you have to make sure you don't bite off more than you can chew. So we're starting with, adult patients, parents of minor kids, with the plan that we can expand in the future, because they're clearly a 12 and a 13 and a 14-year-old are going to have really important insights too. Just unfortunately not part of this particular study.
Are the participants' names made public? I think Catherine means the people who choose to participate in the study.
That's another great question. Yeah, they are not. So number one, nobody will know that you participated unless you tell them. And then number two, whenever we do our analysis, we take all the recordings of our discussions, we turn it into a Word document that's all typed out. And then we go through and we remove anything that would potentially identify you. Your name, your doctor's name, your hospital, the city you live in, your dates of birth, ages, things like that that would give somebody who knows you a chance to say that's definitely you. We get rid of all of that stuff as one level of protection. And then whenever we go to write up papers on this, we do a next level of protection where we look at every quote that we pull out to put in the paper and we say, is there anything in this that would definitely identify the person, or they would say, I know that's me. Those types of quotes we get rid of. You can tell us whatever you want, but we make sure we take it on ourselves to get rid of any identifiable information.
Catherine, did that answer your question? I'll keep an eye on chat and make sure she doesn't have any follow-up about that. So what's the timeline for when you'll be initially reaching out to people and to the interviews?
Yeah, that's a great question. We will meet next week and go through our list and see how much interest we have. Bryan and I will be dividing it up, and we will be start scheduling as soon as possible. But if you have, if you say I'm traveling next month, can we do it in 3 months? Absolutely. If you say we need to do it next week, that works as well. So we're just going to start contacting people, and we both will be really flexible with the type of timeline that we want to work with.
That's awesome.
In general, the faster we can get a study done, the better. So our goal is that we're waiting on your schedule and you're not waiting on our schedule. That's our goal.
This is a great one. And I think this might be some of the year 2 stuff, but I think it would be great to hear your response to this. When the study is out, can you provide guidance on how to share with your child's vascular anomaly team?
That is such a great question. That's absolutely right. So whenever we do research, there's generating all of the knowledge and then writing it up. And then the second part is something called dissemination, which is how do you have a really good plan to make sure the information gets to all the people that need that information? Part of that is going to be, like Anna had said, presenting it at conferences where these types of doctors are. Another part of it's going to be publishing the papers, talking with you all. But the other thing I really want to do is when we have these follow-up webinars in a year and then probably in 2 years from now, I want to tell you all what we found, what our plan is for how we're going to send this out to different people, and then get your insights on what materials would be helpful for you to be able to bring to your clinicians and what formats you think would be best. And this is where that engagement with you guys and using your expertise from living through this will really help us. But absolutely, that's top of our mind of making sure that we can get it out to the appropriate teams.
So there's a message that says, unfortunately, I'm based in the UK, so cannot participate, but I'm interested in finding out as much information as I can. Do you know if there are any studies like this in the UK?
Gosh, I don't know of any specifically. I sure hope so. I wish there was something we could do to connect you with somebody directly. I don't know, Bryan, if you're aware of any centers that might be doing it.
So I really don't. What I can say is when Anna and I both went through the literature in really minute detail to find every study that was related to this, and we found There's one person in Australia who's published 2 articles on this that's kind of interested, and then there's 4 other articles published on this, and they were all written by Anna. So, you know, the good and bad thing is that as of right now, we're kind of it. But our goal is that we can spark something and get more and more people interested in especially internationally, start getting more studies built around the world.
Any other questions? And if you don't want to put it directly in the chat, you can direct message it to me or to Melanie if you are more comfortable doing that.
And why don't we shift to some of the questions we have, and then if folks still start to have some sort of logistics questions, then those can sure jump in as well.
Before we go there, Anna, I'd like to add to what the last question was. We are doing quite a bit to loudly promote this and have had questions from other countries, because we are kind of a pretty international, both of us are international organizations. And I have actually spoken with several people. One of them we did connect, and I've had other inquiries since then. So we plan to, Letitia, continually kind of loudly verbalize this study so that others can maybe pattern off of it, or maybe be interested and link in at some point in time later down the road. Now, it won't be, they'll be independent because of IRB issues, but still it could be, hopefully, like Bryan said, this will spur a lot of other similar efforts. Thank you.
And to tag on to that also, that's a great point, Melanie. Even though we can't include international participants in the interviews, you are more than welcome to take part in these webinars, or if we reach out to the community in any other way, we still would love your insight. If we're talking about how are we going to get these results to the doctors in a form that they need, you would still have incredibly important insights during these kind of discussion, question, answer sessions. So please feel free to keep joining us in these webinars as they go along, even if you're from outside the US.
That's a great point.
All right, so we've hit the first one, but we'd love to know if you want to drop in the chat in just a few words or a few sentences, what makes you interested in joining this study? What are you excited about? And Kristen and Melanie, maybe you could jump in of why are you excited about this project? Why do you think this is important for your community?
Well, it's such a huge unmet need when I think about, my daughter's journey over the past 18 years. I think that there are many things that could have happened differently. And I think for me, I'm really hopeful that people with younger kids will not have the same experiences that we did. So there's a few things: helping form better communication and thus better care for families with newly diagnosed children. I'm interested in sharing my story, hoping to hear other stories when the study results are released. I'm excited about getting more publications out there about vascular anomalies so we can raise more awareness of our experiences. Me too, Rebecca. I'm excited to help the process of getting people the proper care they need so they don't go through the uncertainty that I went through.
I'm excited about it because I have applied for grants in the past, and what I find is what Bryan said actually initially, which is documentation of a problem or it doesn't exist. And if you do not document it, you can't ask for money to resolve it. And I've been turned down by the NIH a couple of times for that very reason. Also the fact that we didn't have a house because we didn't belong to NHLBI or NCI or whatever. But I think that this will give us the secure footing to go in and request a solution to some of these problems, and to have outside assistance in doing it, rather than just having the same set of doctors within each community and those only being pediatric, to try to solve these on their own, because these are already dedicated people and they're already doing everything that they can. And so pulling in from the outside is going to require this kind of documentation. That's me.
And then we have another comment, which is FAVA is largely ignored in most studies dealing with vascular anomalies. I'm excited that researchers are interested in learning more about the FAVA experience and helping our population. I think it's very necessary to do such a study because many people run from doctor to doctor. And if we as an association can offer this to people who have a lot of questions, you can also reassure them in a way. Melanie, can you read Hunter's comment?
If I unmute, I can. Yes, let's see, you did civil patents. So we're going to start with Hunter Wilcox. Says, I'm probably too old for the interviews. I'm 39. But in the standard situation of many working adults in the US, where my insurance and doctors change every couple of years, and I have yet to speak with a doctor who is aware of my condition at all. And the only diagnosis I had at birth, or I had was at birth, which may not even be accurate at this juncture. The hope is that we can get better. The hope is that this could get better for anybody down the line. This is tremendous. And I think that they are already aware of this, because we've had this discussion that the older population, anybody like 25 and over, might have difficult situation going with finding doctors and finding anybody to give them a diagnosis. Sierra Moore says she's excited about the possibility of a deeper understanding of vascular anomalies. It's been a scary and confusing 34 years navigating KT.
Yeah, and following up, Hunter, thank you so much for sharing that. You know, what I'm struck by as a clinician, I see almost exclusively patients with vascular lymphatic anomalies, ranging from 2 weeks old to, I think my oldest is in her late 40s. And the number of people I've spoken to who I've had mothers that are in tears just because I knew what they were talking about when they told me their daughter's diagnosis, and they'd never met a doctor who, didn't have to be taught by the family what the diagnosis was. And there's so much we can do better, whether it be at multidisciplinary groups, whether it can be leveraging relationships with primary pediatricians and primary internal medicine docs in the community. There is so much we can do better, and I hope we can build off this foundation.
And then Jeannie says, I'm 74 years old and I still have trouble getting treatment. I did not even learn the name of my anomaly until I was 69 years old.
Thank you for sharing that. And I saw Claire had written a comment back a while ago that I think we missed because these other comments started rolling in. Claire was asking if there would be webinars for seniors with vascular issues as they age. So I guess there's maybe two parts of that. One is a research part, one is a CLOVES and KT community part. From the research part, I would love to have a dialogue with older adults who are navigating vascular lymphatic anomalies. I think that in itself is another really, really important area that there's nothing in the literature on, and there's no guidance yet onto kind of best practices. So that's something I definitely want to keep in mind, especially as I hear more people say, I'm 73, I'm 74, I'm 72. I think that's another area that would be a really rich next area to dig into and start documenting some of the issues.
We have another chat or message that says, diagnosis is unclear. Doctors lack clarity on vascular anomalies. If we can't diagnose, we can't treat. Cardiologists address heart valves, but leg valves do not seem to be addressed.
Absolutely.
And one of the early conversations I had at Cincinnati Children's Hospital was the idea of a lot of this being kind of orphan illnesses, right? That it doesn't belong to any one medical specialty. And it's always like you just fall outside the lines of a certain specialty. And that can be really challenging. because you don't see yourself in the literature, you don't see yourself in what the doctor is saying to you, and that can be really difficult. I know I experienced that a lot, you know, getting past specialist to specialist before you find someone who kind of uses the language and uses the experiences that are familiar to you.
And then as a 73-year-old with Parks Weber, it's impossible to find knowledgeable medical support for me.
Yeah, as we look to the future, you know, the big goal that Anna and I share for this is that our research goals don't stop at just describing the problems. We really want to build on this. And, you know, there are some bigger organizations that I think would be really interested in supporting this over time. One that comes to mind is the Patient-Centered Outcome Research Institute, or PCORI, which really supports comparative effectiveness and clinically driven improvements in care that often where the outcomes are tied to patient-reported outcomes, meaning that it's not just that we look in the lab value, but we also get feedback from the patients themselves to make sure that care is actually improving. And I think this is just such a rich area for that.
And then Catherine says, can you repeat that clinic, please? I bet she means patient.
The name of the funding agency?
Yeah.
So PCORI, P-C-O-R-I, there it is. Yeah. It's a government, it's funded by the government to test for comparative effectiveness of different, so making sure that one treatment versus another treatment, which one's better, but they have a very flexible definition of what an intervention is. So, and what comparative effectiveness means. So, you know, if we developed in the future some type of an intervention to improve the care at primary care offices, and we compared that to not doing that, that could often be considered comparative effectiveness. They also have a second wing of PCORI that focuses not only on developing the tools, but how do you get those tools used more broadly, something that's called dissemination and implementation. So what's cool is if we can long-term come up with some ideas of how to improve care, we can potentially also get funding to say, how do we take this thing that we know works and try to get it used around the country and eventually around the world.
Great.
And that leads nicely into our final question here is, how would you like to learn about the results of this? If you want to put in the chat, you know, would you like, we'll do another webinar? Are more webinars helpful? Maybe recorded videos, print materials, you can look at all of the above. But we'd love to hear from you of how do you want to hear about what we're finding out through this study?
Print materials, email newsletters, print materials. I'll say video. I think video is great. And materials in like easy to understand language. That's a really important thing to me for our community.
I've been big into making infographics, very like a visual, you know, so we could maybe come up with something creative like that.
Love a good infographic. And then we have a recorded webinar is great, but print materials and patient-friendly language is also great so we can distribute within our communities. Facebook, CLOVES, KT group, email newsletter to share with our local primary care providers.
I love this. We had thought of sharing it with you, and then for you to urge us to create something that you can share with clinicians is so important. I'm so glad to hear that feedback.
I plan to try to share on the website also, so that if anybody wants like a minute, you know, brief update, they can just they can go to the website and look. But yes, with all of these other, this is in addition to all of these other things.
Yeah, we'll definitely put it in like our news section on our website, and then there's a you know, a trial section on our website, so we'll keep information there as well. And there's another comment that I agree we need to have print material to give to doctors.
And I see we missed Melanie's comment. I just wanted to we are from Guatemala. It's very exciting to know more people with condition. My brother has 16 years old and he wanted to know more people with KT and know more about the useful information you're going to give, because in our country, we don't have that much information. Thank you for sharing that. And I agree, I didn't see another person who had a venous malformation like mine until I was 19 years old. And literally to see another human face to face in a clinic was like the greatest. It was like a 4-year-old girl and I just wanted to hug her and be like, hi. And there's just something so important about being able to see your experiences and other people's experiences.
All right, we're coming to a natural lull. Do you have any other questions you want folks to answer, Anna or Bryan?
So the one thing I would encourage, if there's anyone out there who says, oh, I'm interested, but I'm not sure if I qualify, just contact us. Again, I'd be happy to spend 5 minutes to figure out for sure whether or not you qualify, but I would love to make sure you don't qualify before you say I shouldn't contact them, because it might not work. So please feel free to contact us. Any questions, even if you don't qualify for this particular study, but you have thoughts, ideas, you just want to let us know, here's our emails. Please feel free to reach out. We are always here, electronically tethered to our phones and emails. So please feel free to reach out to us with any questions. Anything else, Anna, that you wanted to add?
Oh, is there a WhatsApp group available for this? Anthea, do you mean for the KT support group and the CLOVES group, or for the research study? I know that CLOVES Center Community does not have a WhatsApp group. Okay, maybe for both. Melanie, do you have a WhatsApp group? Melanie?
No, we do not have a WhatsApp group. We have been looking at putting one together, but I need a volunteer that's going to take it over.
Yeah.
Because I cannot do it all the time. So that's where we were on that. But if I know that in Europe they do use WhatsApp a lot more. That's their kind of communication that replaces, I guess, some of the social media that we use. So that was we're looking at it, but don't have it yet.
And there's not a WhatsApp group for the research project, correct?
No, I've never done that for research. That might be a cool idea in and of itself, of having people chat together.
Some crowdsourcing.
Yeah, I'll just have to find a teenager I know to explain how it works.
Okay, there's one more question. Will you include as the foundation for this effort a broad definition of vascular disease? There is KT, hemangioma, May Thurner, combined symptoms, etc. So a broad definition is helpful. So I guess the question, so what is the definition of a vascular anomaly?
Yeah, that in itself is a great question. There's complex frameworks that you can look at to say what is, what isn't. Again, my view is that if it's somebody that has some type of an abnormal growth or an overgrowth of a vascular or lymphatic aspect of their body and it's affecting their lives, reach out to us. We are keeping a very broad interpretation of what that means. So reach out to us and there's a good chance you would be eligible.
And if you agree to participate, we'll have you complete a short kind of demographic survey. And if you see our list of things that are included in, it's pretty long. So you'll be, we're not eliminating much. So it's a pretty broad strokes that we're using.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she says vascular anomaly seems to work all inclusive.
Exactly. Great. Thank you for that comment.
So if anybody comes up with questions afterwards, you can contact Bryan or Anna. You can contact Melanie or I. You can see us on Facebook and on email and on the websites. So there's lots of ways to find us. So please reach out if you think of anything else or need to get in touch with Bryan and Anna with questions.
Thank you all so much. I really appreciate you taking time this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thanks.